So now the last speakers, we go for some questions. Last minute, we will try the video from CITSEA UPC. We'll, at the end of everything, before breaking systems, we will try to see whether it's possible or not to see this video. Questions? No questions. So I would say I've got some of them prepared. It was so difficult. Who is Shannon? Shannon is coming. Okay, we're looking for the mother. So Volker, you were talking about business cases and the ability to postpone or avoid reinforcement of the network when there's an abundance of renewable injection. Any example besides what we know from this Smart Rural Grid project?
Yeah, for example, there are controllable, adjustable transformers, low voltage transformers already in place. At least in Germany, they are quite often used, but they are much more expensive than the IDPR. So our approach, I think, is much cheaper, much more cost efficiency. Problem maybe behind that is regulatory authority, because we are talking about OPEX and not CAPEX, operational expenses or not capital expenses. Just buying a transformer and saying, okay, for the next 30 years, this is it. And the authority will allow you to put it into the grid fees. That's a simple thing. But every year to have a new fight with the authorities to say, okay, these are costs, operational costs, which I have due to this approach and due to personal and due to systems. It's another game. I think that's a little problem. But there are already such examples, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. No questions yet. So Daniel, please, from CITSEA UPC. The relationship, this morning we were near to the electric car, electric vehicle, electromobility. Do you think that the IDPR can contribute to the penetration or be a solution or a constraint for the penetration of electromobility in rural or in urban scenarios? Huh? Because what we have been talking about smart rural grid. This is how things started. Huh? What we have been discovering along these 3 years is that in rural scenario we need 100% of the features of the device, but part of them, so a cheaper device, can be used in any kind of environment, even urban. Huh? So the question is, which impact can this have with the...
Yes, in fact, installing the IDPR at the low voltage side, it's one of the potential benefits of this kind of solution. I mean, for example, in case of, let's say some number, 25 kilowatts of a transformer, and we have the system really congested, maybe because we have 24 kilowatts used, and imagine that you install some charging point at the low voltage side for charging some electrical vehicle. The IDPR can contribute, can support the charging system, for example, integrating the renewable energies, and in that sense, we don't need to invest some money because we need a new infrastructure to support the, let's say, 10 kilowatts of extra power for charging a car. So in that sense, the IDPR, it's the system that can help, can assist to route the energy, but not just for the overhead lines, but also for the integration of the renewables. So for sure, it can help to a better use of the full current infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Good, thank you.
Yes, just to see things start. One question. You have been constantly referring to all of it. in terms of the needs and exploitation from DSOs. That's it? Is this just for DSOs? So is there any other scenario in which this could be used? I'm thinking of cities, university campuses, technological parks, big areas. Is there any other area in which this could be exploited beyond the passionate world of the DSOs?
Yes, not just for DSOs and neither for secondary substations. The technology, the project is focusing in the rural areas because in the beginning we're looking for the gap that is not usual for another project. We want to get a differential criteria to install. But technology has the potential to install, to manage several consumption in industry, in homes, in low voltage cabinet network, in depending the needs, the flexibility. This is a device that is able to interact for each part of the grid that we have electrical features. This is the concept, but if we take a look from primary substation till smart meter, we can realize that from primary substation we have high level of automation, or let me say intelligence. And after the smart meter deployment, from the border between DSO and customer, we have a huge quantity of information. But between primary substation till the customers, DSOs doesn't have anything. Secondary substation is the next evolution from primary substation, and the next one is low voltage. And in another side of the meter, of course, is the potential.
But who's going to pay for the IDPR? Yeah, DSO could be, but or an aggregator, or the owner of a local energy community. So at this moment, there are some new figures in the system which are opening possibilities to this technology. But according to the current regulation in Europe, because we have to think in Europe where it's our nearest market, and then we have Africa, and we have India, and we have South America, places where there's no regulation. The need exists, but there's no regulation, so no problem at all. Well, it's only when we are looking at our neighbor markets, so normally speaking, we should expect that the next market will be at home, in Germany, but as we know in Germany, they will be able, a DSO in Germany will be able only to use 50% of the features of the IDPR. So, or other markets, less regulated, or other new figures to make a profit, a business model out of this technology. Because certainly a DSO in Europe cannot have an IDPR in place with the whole features that have been developed.
Maybe my question goes a bit in line with your last comment, Santi. So I saw on one of the last slides from Ramon, under technical results, I think you mentioned about 3.3% of less losses. So I've got two questions. So how, if you extrapolate this to bigger areas, do you expect it to, be in that range, or do you expect it to increase? And the second question is, there were kind of a few bullet points that could be expressed in economic figures, euros. Have you taken a look at that aspect as well?
We are optimistic. We don't have enough figures to get, but in the beginning, the theoretical challenge that we wrote in the project, just installing and manage, such as we explained, because it's the real outcomes that we can get and share with you. We was surprised because we increased a little bit, 0.17% more. We will need to to get more information, more data, and also depending the season of the year, the variability of the loads, the temperature, but at least it's not becoming worse that traditional way. But in euros, right now, I don't have information to share with you.
It's secret. No, the calculation behind the 3.3%, it was, if we talk about local for local, so consumption as close as possible to generation, we get rid of the losses of the transport, the losses of the distribution, and then the losses because the imbalance of phases and temperature and so on. So this is strictly the calculation behind 3%. So if you create more and more and more and more micro, it's always 3.3%, but because it was the original estimation. And then concerning costs, we are in there. We are looking for industrial cost, because as far as we have only laboratory prices, even if you scale to 3, 4, 5 units, this is not. There's no possibility of putting this in the market, other than markets with a huge need that we don't know at this moment. But for the needs of an European DSO, we know the limit. This limit we cannot reach. If we go above this limit, then there's no business for this device. Oh no, a difficult question is coming.
A student from UPC. I would like to ask, what is the next step you are thinking of? Is to finding the market where you could monetize this, or finding the business model which you get around and do this business in Europe, or some kind of other technological development which you could apply this in the current constraints?
We have an issue at this moment at developing the business model. So those are students master sustainable engineering from Kikino Energy, and they are helping us. We are learning a lot from them because they have always fresh ideas. And at this moment, we are creating the business model. We will never ever go for a model which is only based in selling devices. But we are not yet able to describe a service model, which you can establish a long-term relationship with your customers. And now we are in this phase of developing the business models. This is there. Now we are only talking about costs. Okay, cost you can manage. We are producing devices with top range of features that most of the possible customers, they don't need. So we have to look for price. But if we go for a business model based only on selling devices, this is not interesting. This is not a market for 1 million units in the world. So we are looking for a service model based, and we are there. So if you have any proposal, we'll be welcome.
I want to add one comment about business models. We see more and more coming changes, more e-mobility, integrate renewables, local energy markets. So you need a flexible concept to handle this, all these things. So nobody knows what happens in 2 years or in 3 years. And so you have the technology, and now we have to show what we do with it beyond the project now.
Yeah.
I have to say, meanwhile, that last week, Friday, we knew that a new project was accepted. In this project is participating also CCA, UPC, Osfol Innovation Center, and is led by the Universitat of Girona, and is the son of the smart rural grid. So we have a continuation. We will be approaching the household. We will not jump through the meter. We will stay in the site of the distribution unit operator, but much nearer to the place where the production and the consumption is produced. So at least technically, and so we will have the funds for starting again with a new development. So sorry.
All right. My name is Brent Brindle. Actually, I've been part of this project, but since it's late in the day, I might as well ask my colleagues in the project a question regarding value. Because we heard that the customers or the end users, they are the most important. But if I count the number of references to end users during this conference, I think come to about 5 times. Question is, what kind of value will each of you promote to end users and end users representatives in order to boost the R&D that you have contributed to and create the business models that we're searching for? Because the key is added value.
Thank you. Yeah, again, you have seen in the winter package, they talk about active customers, huh? And this is an existing. So, how many of you read? So you open the invoice with the electricity bill, and you read it. And here, let's say, we could consider that this is a quite specialized audience. Huh? So unfortunately, and it's our fault. Huh? I mean, we, the electrical system, have to recognize that the customer was not important for us until 1 year ago, after 100 years of, because 100 years ago it was about producing, it was about generating huge quantities of energy, transporting and making richness or improvements and social improvements through production and so on. No? So, and the customer was not relevant at that time. And it's only now, a few years ago, when the system, the electric system, went to the customers and said, "Dears, you could start playing with demand response. You will like it. You will gain some, or you will save some peanuts, and you will solve my problems of constraints." Huh? The citizens, the customers say, "Yeah, we are ready to help you." Huh? Now we have the flexibility. Flexibility is when the system says, "Okay, unfortunately, people has not reacted properly to my needs, so I have to do something," and this something is so-called flexibility, which was the effect of the demand response was flexibility. So at that time, until now, the customers we are making an exercise. There's a town, Tona. In Tona, we have 5,000 customers, 5,000 households, yes. We sent a letter to the 5,000 because we are going to deliver in 1 week time, to deliver them every month a nice document with hourly consumption, some advice, so people can start understanding their behavior and to understand that they can have an impact in the cost of the invoice, just making some minor changes in their behavior. Letter and mails to 5,000, the municipality supporting us, and so 20 came, which is successful. I mean, could be no one. Huh? And 20 came, and our expectation is that within 6 months' time, let's say, we can make public that these 20 families are saving money compared to the rest of the people in the municipality. But it's a first step, and my surprise was that when talking with the people from another department of UPC, specialized in big data, they told us that we were going to be the first one in Spain providing this kind of detailed and accurate and positive information to their customers. So nowadays, I don't know, you come from Norway, I don't know if in Norway you expect the customers to say, we want IDPRs in our DCOs, or we will change DSOs. Huh? But in Central Europe, South Europe, this will not happen tomorrow. But it's our responsibilities. We are the ones who have to train, to demonstrate that we have to build trust. We have to build trust with our customers. And our customers have to be motivated to be active. Huh? If not, it's not that winter package will say, we want active customers. This will not be enough. Was okay? Thank you. More? I have one for Ferran. I'm sorry. We will not go out without a question. The thing is that if the results obtained in terms of performance, not distance, performance, can be extrapolated to any kind of medium voltage distribution grid.
Well, actually, the performance that we have shown is the result of many different tests in different types of line. Some of them were short distance underground, others were long distance overhead. Some of them had transitions between overhead and underground, impedance mismatches, interferences. So, of course, that there's always a physical limit. But I would say to a reasonable extent, we can say yes, because in fact some of the, more than the distance and the bits per second, some of the characteristics that we have talked about today are rate adaptation, for example, or the ability to behave as relay stations. So that means you can build up a complete network, and if you're not successful at the first attempt, maybe you can ask another PLC to behave as a relay system and transmit and be able at the second, be successful at the second attempt. So I would say a reasonable yes. That's my feeling. There's always a physical limit, of course, and that seems to be around 8 kilometers. It is.
Yeah, 8 kilometers walking in Vallfogona is not that easy. Question, for all about the batteries. This morning we had the Nissan people, and there's plenty of batteries. I don't know if you're aware of a company in Valencia called Ampere. They are producing batteries. And this morning someone was talking about the business case of batteries of 5,000 euro and so on. What Ampere, they explain is that they are only selling batteries for home. I don't know if you have seen, they are round. They try to do something which is fancy that you can even decorate your house. The people which is buying batteries at that moment, what they say, is people that is not interested in making a business case, is interested in showing his batteries to the neighbors and friends. So there's no business model behind, which is great. Imagine buying something without paying attention to the cost or to the benefits. One more thing, just a comment. I have a Nissan Leaf, and when people know that you have an electric vehicle, they say, have you already calculated the savings and so on? And my question is, you have a petrol car, have you calculated it? How can I be the one having to explain why I'm doing such a thing? Yeah, the batteries. So we have batteries in the electrical world. They were not expected. They were expected only for the mobile devices. And then we are talking about forecasting and managing the electricity. And if I'm not wrong, in Germany, when you have a battery, they ask you if it is consumption or production to apply some fees. I think that you have to define which kind, if you put which side are you placing your battery. So what do you think about the impact of the batteries? in households and all this, it's an extra difficulty for forecasting.
Forecasting with me, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in terms of forecasting, well, yes, because the behavior of the batteries is driven by prices. So it's not the real demand what you see, but it's in a reaction to prices or autarky of a home. But I think it's the other way around, what Bernd asked, to the local markets. And I think maybe we are somewhere in the transition between a DNO to a DSO, distribution network operator to a system operator. And system, it means services, and one kind of services is being the enabler for a local market. That means to provide something like a price signal. And if you give a household a price signal and say, okay, at the moment, buy tariffs, for example, but not as a fixed tariff, let's say from 8 to 20 hours a day it is this price, but something which you get as a forecast. Every day you get a price forecast. And when you have something automatically, that's very important, I think, something automatically which reacts to that. So a kind of demand response in a household. And then the battery is the enabler to take part on this market. And maybe in this case, it's also a question if the IDPR and all the concept has some add-ons, and I think it's for local markets. In terms of forecasting, yes, it makes things a little bit different. For example, we see it on the thermal side. If you talk about district heating, for example, it's not so easy to make a forecast like you do for power, but usually power is not stored. So in the moment where you have a demand, you have a generation. So you really make a forecast of a demand. It's not the same on the heat side. You make a forecast of when it is generated, but not when it is consumed. So there's storage between. So yes, forecast will be worse. Let's say 2 or 3% worse when actually, but on the other side, it's the enabler for the local market.
Last question or one.
I would like to ask about the policies, maybe I guess for each speaker, of your field, what would be the main constraint to the technology, to get the most value of the technology in terms of what policy is constraining right now and how these policies could be changed?
Who will start?
In Spain, we will need to change a lot of policies. But next September, we achieve our next new country in Europe, but we don't have problems. Let me say that in the beginning, believe me that the problem it was in several levels. We had the first goal to the first challenge to achieve. It was design, explain the needs. It was a large discussion about what is needed, understanding the real needs. Under the umbrella of the European Commission, this project, we are able to check everything of technology, exchanging relation, building between neighborhood and customers. The day after, when we conclude this project, is this year, July. I will like that the technology was working like now. We are creating island scenarios to work. But I don't know what is something, could be something you have best answer. What is the change of the relation between retailer and the customers using technology? For me, in this real project, is still operating and doing the same. The future changing the concept of the model of the markets. What changed? The legacy, the regulation, or that will give the flexibility to achieve relationship between producers, consumptions, neighborhood, because DSO, just we can share electrical infrastructure to get this transaction. But legal, we are installing the device following the technical legal issues. This technology can still operate, because at least we increase the level of the intelligence for each one secondary substation. We are managed low voltage level in the electrical grid. It is possible. It's not out of legality in Spain. But to create an island with the safety rules is the same. A changing business case, this is a question from economical skills. I don't have a clear answer.
Me neither. So, no, those are things that we can dream on. We can make business cases, PowerPoints, but at the end we will have the constraint of the regulation. No? In 3 or 4 weeks, we will issue a document which is called Policy Recommendations for regulatory bodies in Europe for the distribution of the future, because if regulation is not advancing a little bit, anything that we have in mind and we think it's logical and will service and will solution some of the issues which are coming, things will not happen. No? The devices in Vallfogona will keep up and running even after the project, but we can do it because we are small. I think nobody here will denounce us. And it's not visible. Let's say it's only visible for people that we invite to see it. We will probably keep it up and running just for other companies or universities or anyone willing to make tests and to learn from the experience over there. But it's not visible. I mean, this is something that if you made in the middle of the city, you are every day in the newspapers. And in fact, we are having problems because we are never in the newspapers. We would like to be a little bit more. But it will be up and running. But it's absolutely out of any kind of regulation. So now, Ms. Assumpta Ferran, please, Assumpta, which is the Director of the Catalan. So you ready? Yes, thank you. Oh, yes.